Oh, iya.
Ya, kita tunggu hakim datang. Lagi dua. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. All the educators here. Let's see. Educators Husna Humaira. Najwa Muhammad Nasir is educators, right? And educators Aina. Alright. All of the educators are here. And good morning, everyone. So before we start the debate, I would like to ask all of the debaters to state your name and your position, starting from the government side. The government side can introduce yourself first, and then the opposition side.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Taqi Faizi bin Yaqub, and I am the first speaker for the government side. And I'm from TSU. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ani Wahyun as a second speaker from the government team, TSUA. Thank you. I am Noreen Batrisha as the third speaker from the government team, TSUA.
I am Nur Latifah Sania. I am the leader of opposition from TSF.
I am Mohammed Kinazmi, and I am the second speaker of the opposition team, and I'm from TSF.
Hi, I am Ahmad Nabil, and I am the third speaker for the opposition team from TSF.
Alright, the House will come to order. I am pleased to welcome you all to this round of Inter-Tamhidi debate competition 2022. I would like to remind the members of the floor they may only raise points of information in the constructive speech and only after the first minute and before the last minute of speech. Also, please ensure that your internet connection is stable and your voice is audible. Are there any inquiries before we start? No. Once resolved, the round shall start. Okay, with that, I call upon the Prime Minister to deliver his or her speech.
Sorry, Speaker,
yes.
can I ask for a show of motion? Which one did you
Oh,
choose?
yeah. I'm sorry.
No worries, just put it in chat so everybody can see. Also, if it's not too bad, can I ask for the government team to just put like what can we call you, a name in your names as well. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Sorry. The government side, please rename your name. Tak nama nickname tu. Nama apa?
Yeah, you can also do like what the opposition is doing. That
Yes.
would be helpful. So.
Letak nama.
Or that's all right. We can do it as we move along, just to speed things along.
All right.
Else the host can do that. So, but, all right.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. It's okay. Okay, with that, I call upon the Prime Minister to deliver his or her speech. The floor is yours.
Sorry, will we see the time before we start, or are we able to see the time? Okay.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good morning to all adjudicators, distinguished guests, and the timekeeper, and to all my fellow friends. So the topic for our debate, which is the House believe that the state should prioritize adaptation over mitigation in response to climate change. So my big question is, what is the real definition of mitigation and adaptation? So before that, let me introduce you what is climate change. So climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. These shifts may be natural, but since the 80s, human activities have been the main driver of climate change, primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas, which produces heat trapping gases. So responding to climate change involves two possible approaches: reducing and stabilizing the levels of heat trapping greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, which is mitigation, and or adapting to the climate change already in the pipeline, which is adaptation. So how much climate change? That will be determined by how our emissions continue and exactly how our climate system responds to those emissions. Despite increasing awareness of climate change, our emissions of greenhouse gases continue. So because we already committed to some level of climate change, responding to climate change involves a two-pronged approach. First, mitigation or reducing climate change involves reducing the flow of heat trapping greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, either by reducing sources of these gases, for example, the burning of fossil fuels for electricity, heat, or transport, or enhancing the sinks that accumulate and store these gases. Next, adaptation. Adapting to life in a changing climate involves adjusting to actual or expected future climate. The goal is to reduce our vulnerability to the harmful effects of climate change, like sea level enrichment, more intense extreme weather events, or food insecurity. It also encompasses making the most of an potential beneficial opportunities associated with climate change. For example, longer growing seasons or increased yields in some regions. So for government side, we really want to prioritize adaptation over mitigation, because we believe and we strongly believe that humans can adapt to climate change by their vulnerability to its impacts. How? So actions such as moving to higher ground to avoid rising sea levels, like planting new crops that will thrive under new climate conditions, or using new building technologies, represent adaptation strategies. Okay, that was our big why. So we proceed how? Working with vulnerable people and settlement to find solutions that serve them. By how? Preparing for disasters, like planting trees and roof gardens to reduce temperatures, provide shade and increase food security. Next, building multi-story shelters to protect coastal communities during tidal surges and cyclones. So, for our point of view, I'm going to discuss about why adaptation is a very crucial part for our prevent the climate change. So, as I stated that humans can adapt to climate change by how? So we already seen that many, and I think most of countries in this world have faced many climate change. So can you imagine? Let's imagine if we are not adapt with the climate change, how would it be different? And can you imagine how much the damages can be caused if we are not adapt and we are not well prepared for the climate change? Okay, so we imagine again. If we are not adapt and if we are not well prepared, how the damages can cost our countries? If we adapt the climate change at the first place, we can see and we can learn how can we will find a new method and how can we implement a new way to prevent climate change. Like, okay, if we concern about the climate change, we as a government surely will invest a lot of money to prevent climate change. Like we will do something that will help our country to prevent this disaster, because actually because it can cost a lot of money if our country doesn't prepare any new method for the climate change. So I think that's all from me. So I beg you to agree this motion, which is the House believes that states should prioritize adaptation over mitigation in response to climate change. So thank you.
Thank you to the Prime Minister for the speech. The speaker spoke for 7 minutes. Now I would like to call upon leader of opposition to deliver his or her speech. The floor is yours.
Am I audible? Okay. Okay, I will start my speech now. So, Assalamualaikum to the panel of honorable judges, the curious audience, my worthy opponents, and my fellow comrades. So, first of all, from the side of opposition, our approach to this motion or to this issue is that adaptation, it risks the natural environment, and this includes humans and the natural environment like trees and the environment more than mitigation. Why? Because, okay, I would like to rebut what the Prime Minister of the government has said, because you said that we apparently we have to naturally adapt to this climate change because we have always been doing that. But we have been doing that for like a long time now, for millions of years. So how long do we have to adapt to that? And it hasn't solved anything, because how can you, we already cannot stand the current temperature rise right now. So how will we be able to adapt to it for many, many years going on? And imagine if the temperature rising now is already critical, how much more critical will it be in many years to come? You know what I mean? And then how can you, okay, so we know that climate change, it causes storms, right, to happen. How can you, by adapting to climate change, how can you stand people being swept away by storms and losing their homes, and so many more like not earthquake, but like so many storms are occurring more and more. So how can you say that you want to adapt to that? And also droughts. When when droughts when droughts occur, there is a shortage of water supply, and not only for humans and animals, plants, and not only that, but also people will have people will have problem in growing crops to eat. So yeah, so I don't understand why you would want to stand with adaptation, even though, okay, I agree that it's somewhat it reduces the climate change, right? But until how long are you going to let that go on? So next, moving on to my arguments, the next speaker, my deputy leader of opposition, will present to you the methods or measures to apply mitigation. But what I'm going to present to you is the benefits of mitigation, which is what we stand for. So by mitigation, okay, mitigation, I admit that it takes a long time to do, but it increases um, it increases the prevention of climate change even more than adaptation. So what it does is that it reduces the loss of future lives. So when we start from when we start early this mitigation process, it will reduce future loss of life, because like I said before, um, right now, so many people are affected by this climate change. So when we take this mitigation action, um, we indirectly give more chances to citizens and people around the world um, to have the chance to live on this earth and in a prosperous way. And also, sorry. And also, since mitigation, it includes renewable energy. So basically, it's like a two-in-one. Like we're preventing climate change, but we're also not using up all of the earth sources to in order to implement this. And also apa? Um, okay, moving on to my next point, that is it increases public awareness. So, okay, by adaptation, people people don't people don't really realize, or like people are really aware about climate change, because they think like, oh, we're still gonna live in this environment, so like what's the use of adapting to climate change. So if we apply this mitigation, it will increase the public awareness on climate change, and hence prevent this climate change altogether. So it's okay, about my point about renewable energy. It's not, since it's renewable energy, so we're not wasting any of our efforts, or like our sources are non-renewable energy that we have in our country. So it's beneficial in order for everyone to live in peace, right? So I think that everyone should realize what I'm trying to stand for here, and hence support the opposition to support mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you to the leader of opposition for the speech. The speaker spoke for 7 minutes. Now, I would like to call upon Deputy Prime Minister to deliver his or her speech. The floor is yours.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. To the wise panel educator, Mr. Speaker, meticulous timekeeper, and the members of the opposing team. My name is Aine Wahyun, and so for today, our motion is the House believes that states should prioritize adaptation over mitigation in response to climate change. And we, as the affirmative team, believe that this statement is true. Okay, first of all, I'm going to rebut from the second speaker, the leader of opposition from the opposition team has tried to tell you that they were trying to use the renewable energy because it is not wasting any efforts or any in country or wasting anything in the country. So I think that this is wrong, because as we know that climate change has already happened in the world many times, because it is natural things that happen. And also, why would I say that this is wrong? Because why there is nothing improving from using that renewable energy in the country, especially the country that affected with climate change? Why there's nothing changing, or why there's still people that not prepared well enough with the climate change? There's still people who losing their life. If it was really good for the climate change, but why there's still things that lacking in the climate in the mitigation? Okay, so my Prime Minister has already explained about humans can adapt to the climate change by their vulnerability to its impact. As we know that if we adapting to life in changing climate, it involves to actual or expecting future climate to lessen our vulnerability to climate change, or negative consequences like sea level enrichment, more intense extreme weather events, or food insecurity. It is also includes making the most of this potentially better for the people who live in the climate, for the people who are affected with the climate change. Okay, So today I will talking to you about how this climate change can actually I'm sorry, how this climate change actually trigger natural disaster like earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanoes. So first of all, my point is how we want to prevent great damages. As we know, if we adapt, if those people who already adapted to this climate change, they can actually be more prepared. Okay, they already know, okay, this is the natural thing that happens in our country. We should be prepared more. Okay, do you remember just, okay, yesterday, we feel a little bit of tremor, right? In Nilai. Okay, even so, we should be thankful that we live in Malaysia. We not live in the country that always had natural disaster. Okay, we should be thankful that we live in Malaysia. We just feel a little bit of tremor. So what will happen if the climate change happens in our country? How can people who live in Malaysia must be not prepared, okay, and that will take a lot of damage, okay, especially with people losing their lives. Okay, many buildings were destroyed and many more. Okay, so I would like to give one of the example that we can use to prevent these great damages. Okay, do you know that we in Malaysia that we actually created a smart tunnel to prevent floods in KL? A smart tunnel, or which means storm water management and road tunnel that has built to the main purpose to solve the problem of flash flooding in KL. Because you know that KL is estimated to be flooded once every 100 years, and if we already created this, we already take a prior action upon having upcoming flash floodings in KL. And also, you know that people in Japan already built earthquake resistant buildings. The house that built in Japan to withstand some level of tremor. It is almost 87% of buildings in Tokyo already built to withstand those tremors. And also, secondly, my point is we can decrease the climate refugees. Why would I say so? The climate refugees suffer from droughts and windstorms on a scale before are the world's most forgotten victims, and they were forced to flee from their home due to disasters or other weather event is limited, and that is why they were called as the world's most forgotten victim. So there's an urgent need to clarify that the climate refugees is actually, we need to take more attention to them. We need to give more attention to them, because why? They lost their life, they lost their family, they even one of them become crippled because of this climate change that happened. They even lose their income. Okay, if droughts happen, they cannot afford to give foods to their family, and also basic needs. To the educators, Mr. Speakers and political scientists and members of opposing teams, I would like to say that as a affirmative team, we believe that the state should prioritize adaptation over mitigation in response to climate change. Thank you.
Thank you to the Deputy Prime Minister for the speech. The speaker spoke for 7 minutes. Now I would like to call upon Deputy Leader of Opposition to deliver his or her speech. The floor is yours.
Yes, you hear me?
Can you repeat?
Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And very good morning to the honorable guests, respectable judges, the timekeeper, and teachers and friends, and my fellow congrats. The topic of our debate is the House believes that the adaptation the adaptation is better over the migration in the climate change. And we, the negative team, believe that this statement is false. The second speaker of the affirmative team has tried to tell you that the uh, the adaptation can prevent the natural disaster to be damaged from the natural disaster. This is wrong because the natural disaster occurs in our lives about almost unpredictable, just like we how we how we learned about yesterday. Of course, we get the prediction for the meteorology, and also we got a warning from the government and so on, and we get a precaution step about it. But can you imagine if the earthquake that happened yesterday will become more dangerous? There are no, if we live in adaptation living and we still in adaptation, although we can think about how we can prevent how can we adapt to it, but if we not take action to prevent it, it will not cause um, it will cause a lot of damage in case of our life or our uh, the natural disaster that we can prevent the natural disaster if we live in an adaptation climate change. I think just like how we firm our statement, how long can we uh, how long can we stay in adaptation climate change? I see. I give you some example. Around in around in around 2018 to right now, there are 200 cases that have been reported from the Ministry of Health Malaysia with relate to the hot weather, which is 52 cases of cramp, 126 of head exhaustion, and 22 cases of heat stroke. Did you know that how long uh, if we live in the adaptation, how can we how can there are no uh, such thing as this to happen? Heat stroke case. So I think that the second speaker is really didn't care about that. Okay, our first speaker has already said that the benefit of the mitigation will prevent the loss of life. Will prevent. If we try to survive, if we not to live in the climate change, there are no lot of things such as heat stroke to happen. And if we try to fight it with a lot of it, just like cloud seeding, and we can prevent it from happen. So today I will be talking to you about my part is how the method of the how method of climate change mitigation that can be prepared for, from us to prevent the future generation. The first is we can make the structural project. Okay. If we look at the structural project right now, there are a lot of things that can be hazard area, right? If we modifying that existing structure and infrastructure to protect them from the hazard, we can also apply the public structure as the critical facility and infrastructure. They also we can also make a law that standardize the infrastructure project that can be prevent the climate change. Such as I think, for example, if we look to the construction site right now, there are a lot of methods that can be used to prevent the heat to be heat. That there are a lot of there are a lot of things that can be used to reflect the heat from the surrounding, and it can also there are a lot of things also that can be just like some of building in Johor. So my point is that if we try to modifying the infrastructure project according to this in conclusion, if we can modifying the infrastructure project according to the climate change, we can avoid them to be become more and more this. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you to the Deputy Leader of Opposition for the speech. The speaker spoke for 7 minutes and seconds. Now I would like to call upon Government Whip to deliver her speech. The floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to the wise panel and educator, Mr. Speaker, meticulous time keeper, members of opposing team, and everyone that's present here. I am Nurim Batrisha, and there are several things that I'll be doing as a whip. Firstly, I will reinstate our stance on this debate, and I will provide the rebuttal. And secondly, I will retract the argument from my sides and compare the case brought by both sides, and we're going to tell you that we understand this debate better. Thirdly, I will make clear to you the outcome of the debate and reaffirm our stance. So, firstly, our stance and can you hear me? We from the government team believe that the states should prioritize adoption of mitigations in response to climate change. So I'll continue to my rebuttal. Firstly, the leader of the opposition said that the opposition teams want to use the renewable energy method. So firstly, that our motion to say is that we should prioritize adoption of mitigation, not like we just do we're not going to, it doesn't mean that we're not going to do the mitigations, but we just prioritize the adoption because nowadays our like industrial revolution is also evolved. So it also going to change our, it also going to, the climate change also going to happen day by day. So for example, that for like renewable energy, for example, that we used to we use renewable energy too, but for us to adapt with this climate change, we have to consider that it is not enough that we should only just do this mitigation with the way that we are living right now. So second, my second speaker already told you that we want to prioritize these adaptations, but yes, it will bring like we have this climate change will trigger the like disaster like earthquake or landslide or anything, but we also provide that we have a method to prevent this disaster. And no, thank you. So we in this case we not just gonna let we're not just gonna let this like climate change bring more harms to us, but we also have a method to prevent this to reduce the disaster. So in this case, that like we also have the evolve in our revolution, industrial revolution. There's no important that we're just doing this mitigations. So yeah, we think that it's the opposition seems not understand this. So my second speaker already also told you that we can reduce this reduce climate refugees, because if we there's not all countries have same issues, like some of them have earthquake and so on, but if the country itself have a method that they can make to help the country to avoid more damages, it's gonna reduce it's gonna reduce the people that are affected by this. So like I said, that our industrial revolutions evolve. So if it's bring climate change, we also can make this evolve for in this industrial revolution to build things that will help us to prevent from any disaster. Like my second speaker already have mentioned, like the thing that will detect the earthquake or flood to us, to the citizens in the country to be prepared for the disaster that they will face. So lastly, to conclude that we from the government teams believe that the states should prioritize adaptations over mitigations in response to climate change. Thank you.
Thank you to the government whip for the speech. The speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 40 seconds. Now I would like to call upon opposition whip to deliver his speech. The floor is yours.
So I'm going to begin my speech. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to the Miss Speaker, to all the educators, my fellow comrades, and with your opponents. So the topic of our debate today is this House belief that states should prioritize adaptation over mitigation in response to climate change. And we as the opposition team believe that this statement is not true. First, I will go to my rebuttals. The Prime Minister of the affirmative team said just now that we have to adapt to climate change, and because it can reduce severe impact, and we can do that by erecting buildings and infrastructure that is safer and more sustainable. My question to that statement is, do we have the cost and preparation to do all of that things? Nowadays, in Malaysia, we are in the process of preventing COVID-19, and we are spending a lot of costs in providing the boosters and the vaccine. So in the same time, if the government said that we should erect buildings and infrastructure to make it safer, to adapt with the climate change, will it be efficient? Do we have the cost and preparation, the technical preparation for that? And then I'll go to the second speaker. The second speaker said that, again, they said that adaptation will prevent the damage of the climate change, and they provide some examples such as smart tunnel to prevent flash flood, and Japan is building that is built to resist the effect of earthquake. I will take I want to ask about the preparation again, preparation to all of this, because their side doesn't state our condition right now and our preparation towards this plan, towards making this plan successful. As from the latest report from the United Nations state that most of the country in the world do not do enough to prepare for extreme climate change, such as flood, drought, and wildfire. So in order to make the government's side plan successful, we will need to spend lots of cost and preparation compared to continue doing the mitigation process that we are doing right now. And then for the third speaker, they said that she said that by doing adaptation, by implying adaptation, we can reduce the affected people, we can reduce the damage, and we should be prepared for, we should make our society prepared to face the disaster. So my first rebut against this argument is avoiding damage and reduce affected people, because the government side didn't mention anything or mention any proof that by implement by prioritize adaptation we can reduce the affected people. We don't have any proof, and that doesn't show that by doing adaptation we can reduce the affected people. And also the statement that she said just now, we must we are better to make our people be prepared to face disaster so that we can reduce the damage. But natural disaster is unpredictable. Even though we are prepared to face the natural disaster, we can precisely measure the impact or the effect of the natural disaster. So we cannot just be prepared and face the natural disaster. We must do something to reduce the natural disaster. And as for that, I will go to the summarization of my team case. our first speaker said just now about the benefit of mitigation, that we can increase the prevention and prevent loss of life. This is because by doing mitigation and increase the prevention, we can reduce the risk, or we can reduce the factor that will trigger the the climate changes, such as we can use the renewable energy, we can increase the usage of public transportation and reduce the carbon, and we can reduce carbon release, and from that we can reduce the factor that trigger climate change. And I think that is more effective rather than waiting and facing for the climate change. And then our second speaker just now said about the structured project. So the government need to standardize the infrastructure and building in Malaysia, so that all the buildings are well prepared and to reduce the factor that cause climate change. So as for that, that is the conclusion for our sides, and I believe that mitigation is a better way to reduce the impact of climate change, and will make our society a better place. Will help to make our surrounding a safer place. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you to the opposition whip for the speech. The speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 10 seconds. Now, both of the government and opposition are being given 1 minute to prepare their reply speech. And after all of the debaters are inside the breakout rooms, 1 minute will start. Belum, ya. We wait TSF to get out of the room. They have 24 seconds more.
So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, so for can you see me?
Where are you? Can I see
Okay.
you? Oh.
Okay, so for the reply speech, okay, so it is very clearly that we are not simply just go with the flow, just simply go with the flow because only dead fishes go with the flow. So we already stated that so many big why and big how to adapt with climate change. If we not adapt with climate change, it will cause a lot of cost for its consequences and for the aftermath. But can you imagine that if we adapt the climate
Excuse
change
me.
for the
I'm sorry. I think the opposition first should reply.
Oh,
Can. I'm sorry because we should wait for the other team members to get out, but miscommunication. So it's okay. We will. The time is out. Can okay. You can unmute. Yeah, you can mute, and then yes. And next one is yours. The time is out. I call upon the speaker from the opposition side to deliver their reply speech. Now, okay, you can go. The floor is yours.
Okay, I am the leader of opposition and I am glad to present to you the reply speech for this whole debate. So first of all, I will summarize the debate. So in this debate, we have addressed some important issues, which obviously based on the motion is about adaptation and mitigation. And basically, the opposition side has defended how mitigation is how we object that adaptation is better than mitigation to prevent climate change. And second, on the teams, on the government's side, and based on the government side and the government's case, basically what they did is that they mainly want to their aim is to adapt, right? So what they want to do is that they want to change or like change new things in the nation, like more advancements. But we as the opposition do not believe that this is correct because we have witnessed a lot of changes that have been done in our country, but we are still facing the same climate changes. And our case or our arguments are stronger because uh, our our methods and our measures are more sustainable, and we can rely more on that rather than just creating new things and expecting everything to be okay. And so for the third, I think we did well at proving that adaptation, the effects of it won't really be solved. And I think that we had good points there. Um, and I admit that there are some good points from the government side that they said that you know they are maybe they are more prepared on climate change. Although I think that is stronger on our side because that wasn't the best point that they gave in this debate. And overall, I strongly believe that the opposition side has won this debate, and that is all that I can say. Thank you.
Thank you. Now to conclude, let's welcome the speaker from the government side to give their reply speech. The floor is yours.
Okay, so Assalamualaikum. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So for the reply speech, okay, so it is very clearly that we not simply just go with the flow because only dead fishes go with the flow. Okay, so because for the adaptation terms, we should concern a lot for the climate change because we already know that okay, climate change is unpredictable. So as a human being, we need to adapt along with it. And also, there is no proof that preventing climate change used by mitigation, it will that is proven. So it will take a lot of time too. So we already stated so many big why and big how to adapt with the climate change. Okay, so if we not adapt with climate change, it will cause a lot of cost for its consequences and for the aftermath. But if we adapt with the climate change, we can reduce cost for the damages, and we invest money worthily for the long-term use as it will save our country. So I believe and I briefly say that adaptation, climate change can prevent a lot of damages, can prevent a lot of great damages. So our deputy prime minister already implied the method of how to preventing climate change by use adaptation. So we don't agree that mitigation is a good, but I think we should prioritize adaptation first, because without adaptation, we will concern about the environment, because if we don't adapt and we don't have any idea how to learn about the environment, surely and certainly our country will fall down with the climate change. So by adaptation, we can use a lot of method on how to prevent this problem. So okay, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. My laptop just died. So a good method, but the affirmative team strive and strongly believe that we should prioritize adaptation more rather than just depends on it. If we negotiate mitigation,
I think you're muted.
Mute. Please open your mic.
oh tak ni. Okay, so a good method, but mitigation is a good method, but we the informative teams trust and strongly believe that we should prioritize adaptation more rather than just depends on mitigation, because this will affect for such a very long time. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you for all. Thank you to all. That is all for this round's debate session. Before that, I will assign the educators to the breakout room. Also, the house would thank the educators for their assistance and congratulate all the debaters on their performance. Now, the host will assign all the educators and the timekeeper to the breakout room to discuss, while the debaters please remain in this room in the meantime. Also, I would like to kindly remind the educators that the time given is maximum 15 minutes to discuss in the breakout room. Thank you. Also, for the debaters, you can go for a short break.